When I was a film student a couple of years ago, I wrote and directed a feature film called Good Boy. It was made for around 7,000 US dollars with 4 actors, 4 people behind camera, and it was shot in around 2 weeks. The film ended up getting sold worldwide. The film even had a theatrical release in Germany, Poland, Portugal, Japan, and New Mexico, where it was shown in over 300 cinemas. The film also ended up becoming quite viral, where videos and clips about and of the film has garnered around 300 million views on TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter total. So in this video, I thought I'd talk a little bit about my journey from student film to, I guess you can say, viral feature film, and talk a little bit about my experiences shooting the film, but also how the film became viral, how we ended up selling the film, and some of the decisions we end up making that made it so the film became successful. First off, for those who don't know, I guess I can talk a little bit about what Good Boy is actually about. I'll just read the IMDb synopsis. Christian, a millionaire heir, meets Sigrid, a young student on a dating app. They hit it off quickly. There's only one problem. Christian lives with Frank, a man who dresses up and constantly acts like a dog. So this film was part of my master's studies. I was studying film production at the time. Part of the assignment was obviously writing a master thesis, but half of the assignment was also making a film. It could be a film about anything. It could be a documentary. It could be a short film. But I thought to myself, I had all this time being a film student, and we had access to a lot of great equipment, like the Arri Alexa Mini. So I thought to myself, I might as well push myself. So I decided early on that I wanted to do a feature film instead, even though I knew it was going to be a lot of extra work. I also knew that I wasn't going to have a lot of resources. I knew that when making the film, we weren't going to be able to wow the audience with great production value, amazing cinematography, and stuff like that. So I knew that I had to come up with a concept that was relatively unique. So that's how I came up with the concept of a guy constantly acting like a dog and dressing up as a dog. I had this idea for quite a long time, and I always remembered when I was pitching this concept to people, I always got a reaction. Some people thought it was funny, some people thought it was creepy. So I knew I had a concept that would catch people's attention pretty quickly. And I also think it was a pretty easy thing to pitch to people. And it was also a concept that bigger studios probably wouldn't dare to make because it's relatively weird. So I thought to myself, one of the great things about making a low-budget production where we don't have a lot of finances or any finances is that we could make a movie about pretty much anything that we wanted to. So that's why I came up with the concept. I also knew that I wouldn't have a lot of resources or wouldn't be able to get that many actors because we didn't have that much money. So while writing the script, I kept in mind that I was going to have as little locations as possible and also as few actors as possible. So that's why for most scenes, there's only 2 characters at a time. There's only just a couple locations. There's 2 main locations, a big villa where the main guy lives and a cabin that they end up going to. This is actually one of the main locations we end up shooting. Before writing the script, I already knew that I had access to those locations. So I knew that I didn't have to spend money on location, and I also knew that I didn't have to spend a lot of time in pre-production getting these locations. This cabin also has a lot of bedrooms, so I knew that we were able to sleep at the location when we weren't filming. So that meant that I knew we could save a lot of time not traveling to location that much. I always had location in mind and the production itself while writing the script. As mentioned earlier, it was a very low budget production. So when it came to the budget, we obviously had 7,000 US dollars to make the film. And around half of that money came from the school itself. And 3,000 US dollars came from crowdfunding like Indiegogo. And the last bit of money came from our own pocket. So when we were shooting the film, we obviously didn't have a lot of money, but we did save some money by not having to rent equipment. We obviously got equipment from the school we were studying at. And we actually got to shoot with the Arri Alexa Mini, which was actually quite important for the production. And the reason for that is because we shot the film in around 2 weeks. We had around 15 shooting days, which meant that we knew we had to be quite fast. We shot around 6 to 7 pages a day, and we were only 4 people behind camera, so this meant that we had to be quite nimble. So we decided that we weren't going to have any lights in the film. We were only going to use natural and practical lights. And we also decided to shoot the whole film handheld. So while shooting, I had the film on a easy rig, and I shot with pretty much only one lens, the Sigma Cine 18 to 35mm lens. This was both a budget reason, but also a artistic reason. The budget reason was obviously that we didn't have a lot of time setting up shots and setting up lights. But the concept of a guy in a dog costume, it was a concept that was quite out there. So I wanted to ground the film a little bit. So I decided to go for a more dogma look, or I guess you can say documentarian look, to make the film feel as real as possible. So since we were only shooting with natural light, this meant that the locations we were shooting at had to have quite big windows to get as much natural light coming in. This also meant that if we were shooting at night, we actually had to have locations that had a lot of lamps. We had to bring our own practical lamps. This meant that choosing locations was quite important for the film. But as mentioned earlier, we had already decided on the locations while writing the script. So that wasn't too big of a problem. And also we had some night scenes that were outside. And for those scenes, we pretty much shot during the day. And then we color graded the footage to make it look like it was night. So we shot a lot of day for night for the film as well. Hiring actors, we obviously didn't have the money to pay people properly. So what we did was that we put out a Facebook post on acting groups in Norway. And we were quite honest with the fact that we didn't have a lot of money, that it was a student film. But we actually were quite lucky. For the main roles, we got Katrine Lovise and Gard Løkke, who were just amazing actors, not even considering that we got them for very cheap. We were just really happy with the actors. And also the supporting roles. Amalie, who played the main character's roommate, and then Nikolai, who played the dog, who all just did amazing jobs. And also, I actually made sure to, during the writing of the film, that they actually had a say in their character. So we did have a lot of meetings with them where they were able to form and help write their own characters so that they would have more ownership to the film. I think that's important when you're doing a lower budget film, especially if you're not paying them fully, that they have more ownership to the project. Not only were they able to help write the script, but they also had a ownership in the film sales. So they all owned a certain percentage of the film's profit. So that was just to secure that if the film's successful, they would also be able to get some of that money, which, you know, in hindsight ended up being a great decision. It was quite a hectic production. We shot it in 15 days with natural light, and we didn't do a lot of blocking. We made sure that the actors knew the lines, and then we were just shooting throughout the whole day. It wasn't like crazy working hours. I think we worked around 8 to 9 hours a day, maybe 10 hours if we were a little bit behind. But in general, for me at least, it was quite a relaxing shoot. At least that's how I remember it. It was a relatively quiet set because we were only 4 people behind camera. And I think the great thing for the actors was that there wasn't too much distractions. We didn't have all these lights that we had to set up. So this meant that we spent a lot of time shooting and not a lot of time setting up shots. So this meant that we were working throughout the day without a lot of waiting. And then especially considering we were living at the location we were shooting at, this meant that we didn't have to spend a lot of time traveling to locations. There were some other locations that we had to travel to, but those locations were also quite close by. We were also able to get other locations, like we had a scene at a restaurant, but we were actually shooting at a relatively small town that's not that used to film productions. So people were quite happy to accommodate us when it came to shooting at different locations. So I was the camera operator shooting handheld. I was the only camera person on set. So I actually also had to pull focus. One of the producers were also location and costume. And then the other producer was first assistant director. And then we also had a sound person on set. So that was the full crew. And as mentioned earlier, it was mostly just 2 actors at a time when shooting. So this meant that we saved a lot of time when it came to coverage, because the less people you're shooting with, the less coverage you need. So this meant that we simplified the shooting quite a bit by not having that many people in front of the camera. And also another great thing about having practical lights and natural light is that the actors was quite free to move however they wanted to. And since I was a camera operator and director, this meant that I could freely move with the actors. We didn't have to be as strict when it came to blocking, putting marks for where they had to stand, because we were free to move wherever, because there was no chance of lights coming into the frame. It was just in general quite a freeing way of shooting. And then when we were done with the shooting, we were obviously off to post-production. I edited the whole film myself. I actually edited on a small, quite old Asus laptop that I've had now for 10 years. And I actually cut the film on the free version of DaVinci Resolve. And then I actually upgraded it to the studio version when I had to color grade the film. We shot it with the RLX Mini in ProRes 4444. The file sizes are quite big. We end up shooting around 10 terabytes of footage. But the file types itself were quite easy to edit with. So this meant that we didn't have to make proxies or anything like that. For around 4 months, I was editing the film. I remember I had a 90-minute long cut of the film, and I thought that I was finished. And then I ended up showing it to my professors at the school I was studying at. And just instantly, I realized that it wasn't ready at all. It was way too slow. So after showing it to my professors, I went right home and cut around 50 minutes of the film. I ended up cutting the film down from 90 minutes to around 75 minutes, including end credits. I remember when editing the film, at no point did I think that this film was going to be successful at all, or that we were going to end up making any money. And then when I was done editing, I also did the color grade on that same laptop. I didn't have a color grading monitor or anything like that. And then actually, I also did the sound design and sound mix of the film. At the school I went to, we actually had a great sound studio with surround speakers. We were able to mix a 5:1 surround mix for the film. Me and the sound recordist on the film did the sound design and sound mix together. This was actually my first time doing sound design or sound mixing in Pro Tools ever. And actually, while doing the sound design and sound mixing, I had a tutorial, which was like a step-by-step tutorial on how to do sound design and sound mixing on a film. It was quite a new experience. We also did Foley for the film and everything like that. We did a full, proper sound design, me and my sound recordist. We actually spent a lot of time doing the sound on the film. I think we spent around 4 months doing the sound design and sound mix. And actually, that color grade and that sound mix we did for the film while we were at school is actually the same color grade and sound mix that we end up, delivering to the cinemas and stuff like that. So we shot the film August 2021, and then we were completely finished with the film April 2022. And obviously we sent the film as part of our master assignments, and we ended up actually getting a B on our film, which I remember back then I was quite pissed off about because, we spent a lot of time making what I thought was quite a proper feature film. We shot a full feature film and edited a full feature film, and also did a proper 5:1 sound design and sound mix. But it's neither here or there. And then we were finished with the film, and we end up sending it to a lot of genre film festivals. We knew early on when making the film that we were gonna send it to mostly genre film festivals. And if you don't know what genre film festivals are, that's film festivals that mostly focuses on horror films, thrillers, sci-fi, fantasy, and stuff like that. And with my previous feature film, To Freddy, we had some moderate success when it came to genre film festivals. So we knew that there was an audience for this film on those type of film festivals. And then while sending the films to film festivals, we got an email from a company called Bluefinch. They said that some festival programmers had seen the film and that they recommended Bluefinch that they should contact us because they thought that Bluefinch should be our sales agent for a film. At the time, I actually didn't know what a sales agent was because, they sent us the message that they wanted to sell our film. I didn't really understand. Why do you want to sell our film? Don't you want to buy our film? But if you don't know, a sales agent is essentially someone who helps you sell your film to distributors. So how it usually works, if you made a film, you then need to sell it to distributors because it's not the same people for every territory. The people who distribute your film in the US are usually not the same people who distribute the film in Norway, for example. So you need to sell it to different territories. We sent them the film and they loved it and they want to help us sell the film. Obviously, they'd get a cut of the revenue. And if you look at their portfolio, they very much focus on genre films. So we felt that they were a great fit. So they came aboard First off, they helped us with our festival run. And with their help, we ended up getting into a lot of the major genre film festivals, some of them being Beyond Fest, Fantaspoa, Fright Fest, Paris International Fantastic Film Fest, Terre and a lot of other great film festivals. And actually, I got to travel to some of them. For one of the screenings, I actually got to travel to Paris to show my film. And I also got to travel to Barcelona with my girlfriend to show my film. So that was an amazing experience. Quite a lot of people saw my film through those film festivals. And already through the film festivals, we garnered quite a lot of reputation for our film. People were reviewing our film. People seemed to quite enjoy the film. And through the buzz from the film festivals, we ended up selling the film worldwide. First, we sold it to North America, to a distributor called Saban Films. And they're quite a big distributor, work quite closely with Lionsgate. They usually do a lot of American action films. So Good Boy was actually one of the first foreign feature films that they'd done. So we ended up selling the film worldwide. And as mentioned earlier, we even got a theatrical release in some countries like Germany, Portugal, Japan, and New Mexico. And actually, we also had a Blu-ray release in Germany. Funnily enough, I had to buy this Blu-ray, which, was kind of an honor to be able to buy your own film, or at least I found it quite exciting. And through selling the film, we did also actually make quite a lot of money, especially if you compare it to our $7,000 budget. I think a lot of us actually made more money than the initial budget. So that was quite exciting. And that, goes back to people owning percentages of the profit. I'm quite glad that we negotiated the percentages before we knew we were going to make money, because then that was something we had already decided on when we were selling the film. I think the percentages was quite fairly distributed. It's now on Paramount Plus in the US, and it also was on Amazon Prime for a while, where you could stream it on Amazon Prime, but now you can only rent and buy it on Amazon. And it's also streaming in countries like Brazil, Spain, and France. In most countries, it is actually available, which, is way more than we anticipated. Obviously, there's critics who've seen the film and reviewed the film. It was actually covered in The Guardian, where they gave it 3 out of 5 stars, which was quite exciting. And on Rotten Tomatoes, the critic score is, I think, now 94%. So that means that most critics who saw the film found it to be pretty good, or at least not bad. It was also named top 10 best horror films from Scandinavia by Collider. The film has been covered quite a bit, and we have gotten quite a lot of attention. When the film first came out on, festivals, I actually remember on the Japanese Reddit, somebody made a post about the film, just, a picture of the dog costume and, writing about the synopsis. From one day, a clip of the film went from 2,000 views to 60,000 views, which is quite weird because, this is a Norwegian film and it wasn't even out in Japan at all. There were some viral posts on Twitter, for example, writing about the film, which got a couple of thousand likes. I think there was one post that had around 50,000 likes that wrote about the film before it came out. But then when the film actually came out, people started posting clips about the film. People posted videos reacting to the film or talking about the film. And there was also edits of the film, clips from the film edited to music. And most of these clips were from TikTok. And actually one video that's just an edit of the film has now around 50 million views and around 2.5 million likes. It's been quite a while since I've, counted how many views the clips from the film has on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube and stuff like that. But last time I checked, it was over 300 million views. And just one upload of the Good Boy trailer has around 1 million views on YouTube. YouTube uploads of the trailer has now in total around 5 million views, or even more than that. It's just been quite exciting seeing the film essentially blowing up quite a bit. But that also comes with a caveat. There's quite a lot of people who've seen the film now. I think on Letterboxd it has around 63,000 who's logged that they watched the film. And it has around 20,000 written reviews. And it also has around 5,000 ratings on IMDb. There's been a lot more attention on the film than we ever could imagine. And obviously, this was a student film, so it doesn't have like the greatest production value. And I was also quite young when I made the film. We made the film around 4.5 years ago, and I wrote the film nearly 5 years ago. I was around 23, 24 when I made the film, so wasn't as experienced as I am now. While I'm quite happy with the film, it's obviously not the greatest film, and in many ways we didn't expect that many people to watch it. It has around 2.3 on Letterboxd and 5.7 on IMDb, which for a horror film isn't like terrible, but there is a lot of one-star reviews and half-star reviews. Our intention was always making a film that started a discussion and that was quite controversial. In one way, I am happy that there is quite a mixed reaction to the film, where, you know, critics seem to like the film, and then there's some audiences that seem to really like the film, and then there's also audiences that seem to really hate the film. But I also gotten like threats on Instagram, for example, from people who didn't like the film, or who maybe, you know, didn't like the concept of the film. The reaction has been at times quite intense, but for the most part, and I even like getting threats has in many ways been quite funny. I am quite happy that people have quite a visceral reaction to the film. And obviously, I don't only get threats. I also get quite nice comments as well. There's a lot of Instagram DMs of people saying that they love the film as well. So it's not that I only get hate. But, you know, I get a mix of everything, which has been quite new for me. You go from making a student film and worrying about, you know, making your assignment, to then having thousands of people having an opinion on your film. I am quite happy that it's not the greatest film in the world in a way, because it means that I don't have these high expectations that I need to meet for my next film, for example. I feel quite free, you know, being able to make whatever I want. And it also, perhaps in many ways, have hardened me to criticism. It can be in many ways quite humbling having people just write whatever they think about your film on Letterboxd and stuff like that, and just giving, you know, their honest truth. But that's also have been a great thing, where I feel I've learned a lot about what works about the film and perhaps what doesn't work about the film. But, you know, looking back, I probably wouldn't change a thing. I am lucky that people are just watching the film at all. I hope that people don't misconstrue this as that I'm complaining about people criticizing the film. It's both been a humbling experience, but also been a very exciting experience. So, you know, going from student film to actually making a film that is quite legitimate and is able to make a profit has been just an amazing experience. And obviously, I'm not the only one who's to thank for this. I obviously have to thank the actors who took the chance to be part of the film, the people behind camera who helped produce the film and make the film with me, and obviously my sales agent Bluefinch, who helped sell the film. If I just want to go a little bit into why I think the film works, first off, it's quite a simple concept. It's about a guy in a dog costume constantly acting like a dog. And also, we were quite lucky with the costume. It's quite a memorable costume, so it's quite easy to make posters for the film that were very eye-catching. I think the dog costume is in many ways the first thing that catches people's eyes when they learn about the film. Also, it helps that we had amazing actors. And I think one of the reasons why we were able to make the film as competently as we were able to is because we were able to lean into the small budget and adapt to the few resources they've actually had. And actually, when writing the script, keep the small budget in mind. So it didn't feel as low budget as it might have if we decided to make something a lot more ambitious. That's one of the reasons why the film works, is the concept, the costume, and leaning into the small budget by having few characters, few locations, having a filmmaking style that fit the small budget by only using natural lights and really leaning into that minimal style. That was my experiences making the low budget feature film Good Boy on a budget of $7,000. I hope you guys learned something from this. And if you guys want to learn more about the film or have questions, feel free to leave a comment below. And also feel free to give me ideas about what I can talk about in my YouTube videos. If you want to learn about shooting with only natural light, or only shooting with one lens, or with minimal crew, or how to get actors, for example, for your low budget feature film, do let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next one.